Have you ever looked at a woman who walks through the world alone and felt a flicker of something you couldn't quite name? No partner by her side, no searching gaze in her eyes. The real question isn't, why is she alone? But rather, what sacred thing has she found in that solitude? The truth isn't found in the easy answers of loneliness, heartbreak, or a lack of options. It dwells in a space far more unsettling for the world to accept, a truth that unravels everything we were taught a woman should be. Because when a woman consciously chooses to be alone, she isn't getting lost, she is being forged. And this kind of becoming doesn't arrive with applause or company. It is born in silence, in a strength the world mistakes for coldness, in a freedom that feels like a threat. No, she is not lonely, she is fiercely selective. She is not cold, she simply grew weary of tending fires for those who only sought her ashes. There is something profoundly threatening about a woman who finds her wholeness within, because her very existence shatters the illusion of control. It dismantles the myth of emotional dependency and reveals a brutal truth. Most men don't know what to do with a woman who doesn't need saving. And most women are still learning to see their own power in that silent, deafening mirror. Carl Jung said that everything we deny in ourselves becomes our shadow. These women are the living embodiment of a collective shadow. They are the whispered dream of what many long to become, but few have the courage to embody. They don't scream for love, they breathe their choices. They don't perform to attract attention, they retreat to preserve their soul. They are less interested in charming princes and more in the sovereignty of their own peace. This makes people uncomfortable because in a world that screams for the urgency of we, these women have discovered the profound power of I am. The woman who lives alone isn't lost. She is operating from a higher frequency, a level where nothing is begged for, it is chosen. Where approval isn't a need, her presence is its own validation. Perhaps that is why she sparks so much criticism, so much judgment, attempts to label what cannot be contained. But what the world fails to see is that behind her apparent absence is a presence so potent it fills rooms, it challenges the emotional status quo. She doesn't want just any love, she wants a love that doesn't ask her to shrink. And until that arrives, she stands unshaken, whole, and utterly complete. Maybe you don't understand it. Maybe you see it as pride, or veiled emotional damage. But deep down, in the quietest part of you, a question pulses. What if her silent path is the only one that leads to the most sacred love of all? The one that begins and ends with you. The silence that envelopes her is not emptiness, it is a sanctuary. Those who cannot fathom its value call her cold, distant, arrogant. They do not see that this fortress was not built to shut the world out, but to finally stop losing herself within it. As Jung taught, what we don't face in ourselves, we project onto others. And so, many confuse her solitude with absence, when it is, in fact, the fertile ground where her truest self is reborn. While others searched for wholeness in another's gaze, this woman turned her own gaze inward. There, in the vast wilderness of her unconscious, she met the ghosts she had spent years outrunning. The wounds of childhood, the echoes of unspoken abandonments, the chains of attachments she once called love. Her decision to be alone was not born from an open wound, but from a scar that finally, beautifully, healed. She didn't stop believing in love, she stopped accepting anything that diminished her in its name. This woman knows chaos intimately. She has loved to the point of erasure. She has given until she was hollow. She has begged for crumbs from a table that was never set for her. But at some point, she awakened. Not in a flash of lightning, but through a slow dawn of disappointments that stopped hurting and started teaching. What you witness now is not coldness, it is profound emotional maturity. And that maturity is terrifying to the unprepared because it demands presence, depth, and unwavering truth. She no longer seeks company, she seeks reciprocity. She is no longer moved by promises, but by the undeniable gravity of a true presence. Perhaps this is why she seems unreachable. She doesn't want to be saved, she demands to be seen. And that requires more than charm, It demands the courage to dive into the depths where few dare to swim. That is where most turn back, not because she is difficult, but because she is whole. And a whole woman awakens two extremes in the world, the deepest admiration and the most primal fear. Admiration from souls on the same journey. Fear from those who live in halves, forever waiting for another to complete them. She doesn't want to complete anyone. She wants to overflow, alongside a soul who has also found their own ocean within. Until then, she walks alone, not by a whim of fate, but as an act of loyalty to her own soul. This woman isn't hiding, she is preserving a sacred space. But the world, which still sells happily ever after in pairs, distrusts a woman who is her own universe. Jung said where convention rules, authenticity is a rebellion. This woman is a quiet rebellion. She hears the phrases, "You're too picky, just be more open," and she offers a calm, knowing smile. Because what they call picky is the bare minimum she fought decades to realize she deserved. She isn't seeking perfection. She is seeking someone mature enough to love without possessing, someone who has faced the same inner demons she has. And that is not found on every corner. The discomfort she sparks is not in her words, but in her very being. She is living proof that a woman's happiness is not contingent on another, and that truth shatters fragile egos. Men who feast on insecurity feel threatened. Women trapped in the cage of needing approval feel judged. But she isn't there to confront them. She is simply there to be. And the raw authenticity of a free soul is a brutal mirror for those still in chains. She is not in a hurry. She honors her own rhythm in a world that demands everything now. She seeks depth while the world drowns in distractions. She craves soul-level connection while others curate their lives for a fleeting story. When she says no, it is not a game, it is a boundary forged in fire. When she walks away, it is not drama, it is an act of radical self-preservation. When she chooses her own company over an empty interaction, it is not arrogance, it is clarity. And that clarity, earned through pain and surrender, is her revolution. She doesn't live to please. She lives to be. And that simple act is what makes her so dangerous to a broken system. What truly unnerves people is not her solitude, but the unshakable peace she has found within it. As Jung taught, who looks outside, dreams, who looks inside, awakes. She undertook that grueling inner journey. She stripped off the masks, faced the specters of emotional dependency, and rebuilt herself, not piece by piece, but soul fragment by soul fragment. She no longer defines her worth through another's eyes. Her own vision is enough. How many times have you asked yourself if being alone is a failure or a form of freedom? This woman has asked that, too. She once believed something was wrong with her in a world that idolizes even the unhappiest of couples. Then, she understood, it is better to walk alone than to be invisible in a relationship. That day, she made a pact with herself, never again. Never again would she accept less than the reverence she deserves. Her path is not a straight line. There are days of doubt, nights of deep, echoing silence. But with every conscious choice, a new strength is born. She has learned that the love she seeks does not cage, consume, or manipulate. It liberates. It supports. It expands. And until that love arrives, she will continue to be her own fertile ground for growth, not from pride, but from profound integrity. This woman is the living embodiment of Jung's individuation. She shattered, faced her shadow, descended into her own hell, and returned more whole than before. Now that she knows her own entirety, she refuses to be half of anything again. She seeks not a savior, but a fellow witness to the mystery of life. That is intimidating, for it demands a love that is responsible. And most still love from a place of lack, of possession, of fear. If she walks alone, it is because every footstep is a lesson learned, every no is an act of self-respect. She no longer needs to prove her worth, and that certainty transforms everything. A woman who has rediscovered herself is dangerous, not for her weapons, but for her clarity. The woman who walks alone now is not the same one who once begged for love. Something inside her broke, and that fracture was what let the light in. Sometimes, only in collapse can the soul find its true form. As Jung said, the tree that reaches for heaven must have roots that touch hell. She descended. She faced the inherited pain of all the women who came before her who were taught to be small. She broke the cycles. She said no to toxic scripts. And when she stopped accepting less, the world tried to tell her she was wrong. But she held her ground. First with fear, then with awareness, and finally with a quiet invulnerability. One who has mastered their own abyss no longer fears absence. They learn to feast on silence. She is not unreachable, she is simply no longer available for invasion. She will open her heart, but only to a presence that is real, not a performance. Her intuition is a finely tuned instrument. She can feel an agenda from a mile away and does not hesitate to turn and walk toward her own peace. Her transformation is archetypal. She has tapped into an ancient wild wisdom that remembers women were born not to serve, but to express. Not to be shaped, but to overflow. In accessing that memory, she awakened the wild woman within, intuitive, sovereign, free. And no matter how they try to label her, cold, difficult, distant, the words slide right off. She no longer lives to fit in. She lives to expand. She no longer waits to be chosen. She is the chooser. On the other side of that threshold, she discovered the only relationship that truly matters is the one you have with yourself. Every other is a reflection of that. There is something sacred in the way she moves. Her confidence is a quiet hum beneath the noise of the world. As Jung said, what we face within becomes our destiny. By choosing herself again and again, she has authored a destiny few understand, but many secretly envy. She has learned that true presence is never begged for, it is invited. And if the invitation is not pure, she gracefully declines. Not with anger, but with the dignity of one who knows the price of her own peace. She still longs for love, to be held, seen, chosen. But she will not lose herself to find it. She will only offer her soul where there is room for all of it to exist. She seeks not a fairy tale, but a soul alliance, where two whole beings can stand side by side, their light illuminating, never dimming, the other. If that is too much to ask, then she is content to wait. What you call arrogance is simply the purest form of self-love. We are witnessing a new archetype, the woman who is tired of being desired and has chosen to be respected. The woman who chose to be alone, not because she gave up on love, but because she finally understood that true love never, ever demands your self-annihilation. Her presence speaks before her words. The energy in a room subtly realigns around her. This isn't mysticism, it is the sheer weight of a soul that has fought its wars and chosen peace. She has integrated her shadow and her light. She understands that those who only love your sunny parts have not yet learned to love at all. She is too whole for halves, too free for cages disguised as care. And that is the journey of the awakened soul, trading instant validation for eternal truth. The world will continue to fear women like her, women who do not need, do not bow, do not shrink. Because they break the silent contracts that say a woman's worth is tied to a man. By rewriting her own story, she gives others permission to do the same. And that is a beautiful, dangerous revolution. She continues her walk, sometimes with tears, sometimes with a lion's pride, but always with her feet on the earth. She knows she is not alone. She is with herself. And after all she has been through, that is more than enough. The love that finds her now will not be a rescue. It will be a celebration. When a woman chooses this path, the world will rush to tell her she is mistaken. But she feels a deep rightness, a click of alignment in her soul. It's the wisdom Jung called individuation, the sacred process of becoming fully and unapologetically who you are. The truth in her chest is now louder than any voice outside of it. That truth is in the way she closes a door without slamming it, the way she smiles in her own company. She has discovered that being alone is not a punishment. It is a vow of loyalty to her own soul. And an awakened soul does not submit. It does not dim. It does not beg. It simply is. And that is everything. The world will keep offering its distractions, its plastic loves. But she has seen behind the curtain. She knows it was never about finding someone. It was about never, ever losing herself again. Can you feel it? That stirring deep inside you. Maybe it's a memory, a wound, or the woman you are becoming. Something within you is asking to be seen more clearly, something ready to break out of the old molds. That woman who lives alone is more than a person. She is a symbol of emotional freedom. She is a reminder that you can rebuild, without hurry and without permission. She carves her own path, and in doing so, she lights the way for others who are also waking up. If this message resonated in the quiet corners of your soul, don't let it fade. Share this with the women in your life who walk this path of strength. Like, comment, and subscribe to Soul Pulse, not just as a click, but as a choice to continue this journey with us. Because when a soul is touched, its only duty is to let that resonance echo outward.